Hi all you wonderful people, and welcome to Simply Scuba, and welcome to Ask Mark, where I answer all of your burning questions about scuba diving and snorkeling and all that kind of underwater stuff. This is actually going to be the final ever Ask Mark, unfortunately. I'm going to explain more at the end of the show, but in today's video we're going to be answering questions on dsMBs, delayed surface marker buoys, base layers for dry suits, semi-dry wetsuits for getting a little bit wet, single tank adapters, the Dive Master course, and diving in Mexico. Let's dive straight into the first question, which this week comes from 391 Wombat, and they say, when diving from a boat with a small group, say 2 or 3 buddy pairs, is it recommended that everybody deploy a dsMB for the group ascent, safety stop, or just one? That's kind of up to you, but yeah, if you're all diving together and the buddy pairs aren't separating, or let me paraphrase this a bit better, at the end of the dive when you go to do your stop and you're all in one group, then yeah, if one person sends up a dsMB, then as long as you're all kind of huddled around it, you should be okay. But I would always have every member of the team have their own dsMB, just in case you get separated, either during the dive or even on the surface. It's always better to have your own dsMB to be able to send it up, just so you're so much easier to spot in the water. But no, if you are in a relatively small group, there's what, 4 or 6 of you, then yeah, just one dsMB should be okay. But then it is all kind of dependent on everything from what's picking you up. If you're diving on a liverboard and you have a Zodiac, a small rib that kind of buzzes you out in groups, but they can only fit so many people on board, then I'd probably sort of shoot up a dsMB if I was still in the water. But I wouldn't have like 6 dsMBs that are sort of all shooting up at the same time, because they're probably just going to end up getting tangled in the water. So no, if you do end up doing your final safety stop, and whenever you're sending up your dsMB, if you're in a big group, I'd kind of look around and sort of nominate one person to send up a dsMB, and that's it. It's only if you start to get separated, then I'd start to sort of send up independent ones, but I'd always have every member of the group having their own, just for their own safety if they get separated. James L18 says, hello Mark, after narrowing my own choice for a base layer to Fourth Element's J2 or Xerotherm to complement my Arctic, any advice also welcome on this choice? Okay. None seem to be mentioned, seem to be designed or mention P-valves. Is there an undersuit designed for this, or do I cut a very careful hole? There are some undersuits that have specific sort of P-valve holes. I mean, my BZ400 certainly has one, because I've used that before. There are some, and if they mention it, then they have it. I think Fourth Element, I want to say their Arctic Expedition had the like capability for it. What they basically did is they sewed like a section, an O shape, but they didn't actually make that cut. They left it up to the diver. But if you weren't using P-valves, then you didn't have this like little hole in your sort of undersuit. As far as base layers, J2 certainly doesn't, because that's what I use, and the hose, it would take too long to get it out. The hoses are quite long inside of your dry suit, or at least my one is, so that normally just kind of tucks in under the band and kind of loops around. But yeah, that would be my sort of next option, would be to cut a hole. Or what I would do is I would get my sewing needles out, and I would sew a can't even think, like an eyelet around the section, so that you're like protecting that section of the fabric so it doesn't split, and then cut a hole. Of course, it's got to be large enough for the tube and everything, but yeah, I sort of sew that reinforcing hole and then cut it. But yeah, all good. The difference between J2 and Xerotherm is basically a thermal version J2 is incredibly thin, and it's just there to really keep your skin dry. It's got nice like silver ions or something inside of it that keep it like antimicrobial, but Xerotherm is a little bit thicker. It's like comparing a rash vest to like a 2 or 3 mil wetsuit. It's just got a little bit of sort of thermal. So if you're looking to really expand and sort of improve your thermal insulation, then Xerotherm is going to be better. But I mean, I dive a BZ400X, the Santi dry suit undersuit, so that's got plenty of insulation, so I didn't need that underneath it, so I just got J2. But yeah, I'd be happy sort of wearing Xerotherm underneath it as well. It is going to add a little bit more sort of buoyancy, but yeah, they're both great. Fourth Element definitely know what they're doing when it comes to dry suit undersuits. But yeah, no, a lot of the can't think of a nicer way but to say the like lesser undersuits that aren't made for like really long expeditionary like dives, like your Arctics are made for sort of recreational dives, but not really sort of 4 hours or something, so they're less likely to have that P valve because people who are going to be investing in Arctic aren't going to need them. But yeah, there's nothing saying that you can't just make your own. So yeah, just sew a little eyelet and then sort of cut it very sort of carefully. And I'd probably use a lighter just to seal sort of any edges as well. But yeah, and the usual adage of measure twice, cut once. Make sure that you're putting it in the right spot because you can't undo it. Anthony Rouse says, hi Mark, can you give me some advice on semi-dry suits and which one do you find the best? Cheers, Tony. Yeah, I mean, the one that I like at the moment, of course, is the Apex Thermic. That's probably the newest one sort of out on the market, and I got to try one on, and just wonderful. It's like it's 8 mil thick, and normally when you see like 7 or 8 mil suits, you just think, oh, Michelin man, just, oh, I can't move. But nah, this thing was incredibly flexible, and it is mainly down to the neoprene that they made it from. It's their like limestone based neoprene, and incredibly flexible. And yeah, you get in the water and you're waiting for that cold chill to kind of come through, and it takes a very, very long time for any water to actually finally make its way into the suit. So yeah, sort of thermic. And yeah, it's a lovely wetsuit, or semi-dry suit, I should say. It's got that integrated hood and everything. It's got the front zipper, so you can get in and out of it all by yourself, which is quite common on the semi-dries. You do see some that have like back entry, which are just a bit of a pain after a while. It's all well and good when your buddy's like free and not doing anything, but when you're just there and all you want to do is just get out of the suit, you've got to wait for someone to do it and then do it for you. But yeah, with a front entry, you can just do it all by yourself. So that will be my sort of current top at the moment. Yeah, sort of check it out. That is a lovely, lovely wetsuit and incredibly flexible. Doug Law 99 says, with no single tank adapter, do you just use the cam bands to attach the backplate to the wing, or do you use bolts and book screws? Bit of both, depending on whether I can find my book screws, to be honest. It's not essential because your cam band is threaded through your wing and through your backplate and then back through it all, and then it wraps around a cylinder and then it clamps down. It's really just sandwiching the wing between the backplate and the cylinder, so your wing's not going anywhere. The only thing that a book screw will do is, don't know, just put a little less kind of tension on those actual cam band slots. So it's not essential. It's one of those things where if I can find my book screws, then yeah, go on. But it's not essential in my books. I've been on many dives with just my, don't know where it is, with my backplate and just a wing, just using the cam bands, and it works perfectly fine. Yeah, most wings nowadays, they don't actually have that single tank adapter. They just have a you can see where I've partly disassembled my set. So yeah, I've got just the cam bands, and then yeah, you get that single tank adapter, which are just like two like bars held in by webbing, and that's it. It's the actual inflation of the bladder either side of the cylinder that helps to keep it in the right shape. But if you were using book screws, if you don't know what book screws are, that is a book screw. It's a two-part screw, and all that does is, when you unscrew it, you pop it through one of the grommets, and that lines up to one of the holes in your back plate, and then you basically bolt it together when you can get them to tie in, and then it just kind of holds it together, but it's not essential. I imagine they are a little bit load bearing, but when you've got 2-inch cam band and two of them, they're not essential. Ron Szynski asks, hello Mark, I'm taking my rescue diver course this summer and I'm considering taking the dive master course as well. I do not plan on working as a dive professional, but who knows what the future might hold. What are your thoughts on taking the dive master course for the additional knowledge and training? Is the class worth taking if I don't plan on going on to be an instructor or working in the field? Thank you. Dive master for the sake of dive master. I mean, it will make you a better scuba diver. There are certain parts of it that are just dedicated to teaching, and you will sort of have quite a lot of sessions of teaching and demonstrating skills, which in a way they're designed to sort of make you a better teaching assistant, but actually they're making you a better diver at the same time. So yeah, I mean, it's fairly unusual. I do know of, I did teach one dive master candidate, and he was a stunt performer. And to be able to do underwater stunts, yeah, you had to be a certain level of like diver qualification, and one of them was dive master. So he went through that with like full clarity of, I don't ever want to be a dive master for you or whatever to teach, but I'm really happy to like get fully involved, and he was fantastic. But yeah, it will make you a better diver. It does. I think dive master is where it starts to teach you a bit more, or spend a bit more time about the physics and sort of Boyle's law and all that kind of stuff, so that you're knowing a bit more about what's going on. And yeah, it will put you through your paces and really sort of make sure that you are confident in your own like setup and your own diving, so that you can then sort of branch out. As soon as you sort of qualify like dive master and you do have that confidence, then yeah, you are a better scuba diver. And it's performance based, so you've got a lot of extra watermanship skills to make sure that you're fit and healthy and you're comfortable in the water with all that, and you're graded, which I think is the first time where we like properly grade you like in front of you, and if you don't do it, then yeah, you just keep doing it until you get it right and get enough points. Is it essential? No, but it is. Yeah, interesting question, this one. I mean, one thing is that you have to renew every year to keep in status. So that's something that you do have to sort of think about. You do dive master, you've got to sort of pay for that, but then every single year to stay in status, you have to keep throwing money at PADI, and if you skip a year, then you become out of status. And if you skip a second year, I believe, then you basically can't renew and you have to go and do the course again. So you really do have to decide whether you're going to do it professionally or not. You still have like the cert card. The cert card doesn't just explode after 1 year when you don't pay your bills. But yeah, it will be a running cost if you want to stay in status. So that's something that you do have to consider. Otherwise, I mean, it is some stuff that you can just learn through just experience and just going scuba diving. But there are some other benefits. This is a tough one. Because everything keeps popping up into my mind is like, oh, well, you get to see like new students and you're sort of like there on the front line. You're seeing when things go wrong and you see those precursors that are really useful for scuba divers. Because if you're just diving with fully qualified divers and they're all perfectly fine, then when something goes wrong, you don't see the precursors. Whereas if you sort of learn with students, you tend to see a lot of things that lead up to going wrong so that you can see them when you're out in the field just doing your own diving. Yeah, this is a great question. I probably would recommend it. I'd like sort of more like professional tier divers out there. I'm trying to think if there's an alternate, apart from literally just going diving as much as possible and just doing your own research into like the physics and the physiology about scuba diving. And that would kind of skip out a lot of the training and demonstrating. But even in demonstrating skills, you just end up being bulletproof when you're doing mask and removal just so many times repeatedly. And your buoyancy is going to improve, your equipment and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it is a beneficial course, but you do have to weigh in the cost and the time and everything, especially long term. So sort of yes and no. Yeah, it is really up to you, but it would make you a better diver. Doug Law 99 says, hi Mark, starting to pack for a trip to Mexico. It got me thinking as I was taking the weight pouches of my backplate and wing, what is in your warm water traveling scuba bag? Backplate and wing, regs, dsMB and reel, masks, fins and booties or closed heel fins, wet notes, line cutter or knife torch. Interested to know. So my travel setup. So if I'm diving on a single cylinder in warmish waters, let's just go head to toe. So I'm starting off with my mask. Obviously, you always bring my own mask, which is a atomic venom frameless. I often bring a snorkel. I have one, this bag. So this is my usual like grab bag that has sort of most of the stuff that always comes with me. And I'll delve into that a little bit later actually. So yeah, so my mask, I do bring a snorkel, but it usually stays in the bag unless I want to do some surface stuff. It doesn't actually come with me in the water. Regulators, some of the regulators are usually Apex DST with a XTX 50 in a long hose long hose primary donate setup. Moving down from that, exposure protection, yeah, depends on the water temperature and everything and sort of what the dive type is. Anything from like just a rash vest, just tend to wear like long sleeve rash vests, to a like Fourth Element Xenos 2.5mm shorty, might be a 3mm I think, 2.5, can't remember. The blue one, bright blue, tends to be my colour. Then my BCD, so I have an aluminium backplate. That goes with that D18 wing that you just saw. Single piece harness with with those Apex neoprene sleeves, just because it's a bit more comfortable. I actually have a separate harness for my aluminium wing. Is disassembled. I disassembled it for a video, and it actually has titanium D-rings on it. Ugh. So these guys, they don't require a tri-glider, and because it's titanium, it's incredibly light and just sort of nice and neat. One problem with them that I sort of discovered, and I'm kind of getting on with, is that because they don't have a tri-glider, this part just kind of digs in a little bit. It's not the end of the world, but it just meant that I had to move it down a little bit so it wasn't quite like digging into my shoulder, but that again just helps with the weight. I don't have integrated weights. I just dive with a weight belt, somewhere, that one, just a traditional weight belt, nothing overly fancy, does the job. That goes down to the waist. As far as storage, I often use the Fourth Element Tech pockets or Tech shorts, so thigh pockets, and that has sort of everything from spools and my dsmb, my wet notes, which will be in here. I don't always bring them just because it's for a lot of recreational dives, you don't need sort of that much information sort of on a recreational dive, but it tends to come with me in the bag if I ever feel like I might need them, and some spare bolt snaps, obviously. Down to fins, 5mm boots with my open heel RK3 fins, just because I love them to bits. I do have some like full foot fins, but I quite rarely use them whilst diving. I like to go like full on when it goes with sort of fins, and then on my arms I'll have my Shearwater Perdix dive computer that has a line cutter that's not in there, just a trilobite Z knife, just because most places are okay with that. If you've got like a big knife, some dive sites and sort of countries aren't too fans of huge knives. If not that, then I dive with somewhere the little DIR zone, sort of serrated. It's blunt, it's serrated. That gets you through a lot, and that just kind of sits on your hip and it helps to control that hose. If I'm not diving with that, then I'm diving with the Apex retainer bar, and a wrist-mounted analog compass, just because I like a bit of duality, and I think that's about it. I have a backup mask, which is my sort of Hollis M4 mask, just because I quite like that square, there's like retro shape to it. In my actual like bag, I have a few spare tools. I usually bring some Allen keys with me. What else have I got that's interesting? I got some defog solution that I make up myself. Some spare bits and bobs, some straps. Oh, the dry bag, always essential to bring a dry bag with you. This is just the Fourth Element one, the lightweight, so very, very thin, but it's still, so if like my phone is sort of coming with me, or the keys and wallet and stuff, I always keep that in a small dry bag inside this bag, which itself is dry, so that even if some water does get in, my very valuable stuff isn't getting wet. Otherwise, yeah, just sort of bits and bobs, just replacement straps and cable ties, some O-rings, always useful, some silicone grease, mask strap, yeah, just kind of spares. But that's kind of what I tend to sort of wear, unless I'm doing something different. Obviously, I'd sort of bring the twin wing if I'm diving on twins. Thicker wetsuit, I've got my 5mm upstairs, so it kind of depends, but that's my like usual go-to recreational dive, warm water, single cylinder setup. That's my usual go-to. Yeah, I think that covered everything. I've got just so much dive equipment. A towel is also quite nice to bring, to have your own towel, because a lot of sort of places don't always like it when you bring your hotel towel to dry off all of your scuba gear. But yeah, that tends to be what I bring. Now, obviously, if you check today's date, it's April 1st, so this isn't going to be the final ever Ask Mark. I do this every single week, and I will continue to do so. And yeah, if you do have any questions, comments, queries, or corrections that you want me to chat about in next week's show, just use the hashtag AskMark in the comments section below. Just like people did in the sort of each of these, just type in hashtag AskMark and then your comment, and then it just pops up on my list to add it to next week's and have a chat about it. Good questions this week, again, as ever. That one about the Dive Master, it's true, I can ramble on about sort of that for a long time and never come up with a conclusive answer, but I think for the moment, yeah, go on then. But let them know down in the comments below what you recommend. Yeah, always interesting. Yeah, I think it's worthwhile. It's not a usual course. Normally people who go down the Dive Master route go down it for a reason, to go like professional, but it will make you a better scuba diver, but you will be paying for it. So Let them know down in the comments below. Don't forget to check out simplyscuba.com, where we do sell a lot of this very shiny, fancy dive equipment. There'll be a link down in the description below. Thank you for watching, everybody, and of course, safe diving.